The Galactic Academy told human cadet Rin Keller to forge a blade from their advanced materials vault. 800 alloys, plasma-forged steel, crystallized carbon lattices, technologies that could cut through starship hulls. She walked past all of it and picked up a bone. They called her insane. 92 days later, she shattered a record that had stood for 47 cycles. This is how one human girl proved that sometimes the oldest tools are the deadliest. My name is Kyle Thor. I've been teaching advanced blade crafting at the Kareth Military Academy for 47 cycles now. That's about 62 of your Earth years, give or take. Long enough to think I'd seen everything. Every species, every technique, every cultural quirk that 12 star systems could throw at a weapons instructor. I was wrong. The Academy sits on Athos Prime, a moon that orbits a gas giant so massive the sunrises look like the universe is catching fire. Beautiful place. Deadly curriculum. Perfect combination, if you ask me. I'm Kalareth. We founded this academy 300 cycles ago, back when half the galaxy was still figuring out faster than light travel. 4 eyes, mandibles that click when we're thinking. Exoskeleton tough enough to stop most small arms fire. We're builders, teachers, warriors when we need to be. And I've trained 3,000 students in my time here. 3,000 young warriors who walked into my workshop with dreams of glory and walked out with weapons that could change battles. But I need to tell you about one student in particular, the human, the one who changed everything I thought I knew about warfare. The semester started like any other. First day of class, 63 students filed into my workshop, their scales and fur and feathers gleaming under the harsh industrial lights. I recognized most of the species. Kalareth, obviously. That's us. Vornax with their 6 arms that make them absolute nightmares in close combat. A handful of Kelpri, those floating gas bags who somehow make excellent strategists despite having no bones whatsoever. And then, standing in the back corner, looking absolutely tiny compared to everyone else, there was her. Rin Keller, human. Now, I'd heard about humans before. Sure, who hadn't? They'd only been part of the Galactic Council for 3 cycles. 3 cycles. That's barely enough time to learn proper diplomatic protocol, let alone earn a spot at the most prestigious military academy in 12 star systems. But they were making waves, loud waves, the kind that make admirals nervous and politicians update their insurance policies. I'd never met one face to face until that moment. She couldn't have been more than 5.5 feet tall, put her at chest height to most of my students. No natural armor, no claws, no venom sacs or electromagnetic pulse organs or anything remotely useful for combat. Just soft skin. Brown hair tied back in some sort of functional knot. Dark eyes that absorbed everything around her without giving anything away in return. She wore a jacket, old military surplus by the look of it, worn at the elbows, patches on the shoulders, the kind of thing you don't throw away because it belonged to someone who mattered. And she carried a small leather toolkit. Always. I'd see that toolkit every single day for the next 120 days. Never understood why until much later. I remember thinking, this is going to be interesting. By interesting, I mean a complete disaster. I was catastrophically wrong about that too. First day of my class always follows the same pattern. I give the speech. The students pretend to listen. Then we get to work. The speech is important though. Sets the tone. I stood at the front of the workshop. My claws clicked against the metal podium. The sound echoed off stone walls decorated with weapons from 1,000 different cultures. Swords, axes, polearms, things that don't even have names in most languages. Welcome to advanced blade crafting. I let my mandibles spread wide. Most species recognize it as a smile. Some of the students flinched. Good. Fear keeps you focused. You're here because someone somewhere decided you have potential. Whether that decision was correct or not, well, we'll find out together. A few nervous laughs rippled through the class. The human in the back didn't laugh. She just watched me with those unnerving eyes. I paced across the platform, my lower arms clasped behind my back, upper arms gesturing as I spoke. In this course, you will learn the ancient art of weapon forging. Not just how to use a blade, but how to create one, how to understand its balance, its weight, its soul. I paused. Dramatic effect. I'm good at dramatic effects. Because yes, a truly great weapon has a soul. It becomes an extension of your body, your will, your very essence. Another pause. The final examination for this course is simple. I slammed one claw against the podium. Everyone jumped. You will forge your own blade. From raw materials to finished product. You will use any techniques you've learned, any cultural traditions you bring with you, any innovations you can think of, and then you will demonstrate its effectiveness in combat. More nervous shifting. A Vornak student in the third row started clicking her mandibles anxiously. I activated the holographic display behind me. Dozens of different metals and alloys floated in glowing blue light. Beautiful, deadly, expensive. Now, let's talk about materials. The display expanded. Hundreds of options appeared, each one rotating slowly, showing molecular structure, tensile strength, heat resistance. Throughout history, warriors have used whatever materials their planets provided. Iron, steel, titanium, durasteel, crystallized carbon lattices, plasma-fused alloys. The list goes on and on. Napkin I gestured toward the far wall, where the vault door gleamed like a promise. In this academy, you have access to our materials vault. It contains samples from 800 worlds. 800 metals that can cut through starship armor, alloys that never dull, composites that weigh less than air but stop projectiles dead. My four eyes scanned the class, looking for understanding, for excitement, for fear. Choose wisely, because your choice of material will determine everything about how your blade performs. That's when she raised her hand. The human just lifted one small hand into the air, like she was asking permission to use the bathroom. I stopped mid-sentence, genuinely confused. In 47 cycles of teaching, I could count on one claw the number of times a student had interrupted my first day speech. Yes, my voice was sharper than it needed to be. Sir, her voice was calm, surprisingly calm for someone surrounded by beings who could literally tear her apart without breaking a sweat. What if we want to use materials that aren't in the vault? I blinked at her, all four eyes, one after another. I just explained that the vault contains materials from 800 worlds. What exactly do you think is missing? Oh, I don't think anything is missing, sir. She smiled. There was something about that smile that made my scales itch. I was just wondering if we're allowed to use, other things, if we find them. Other things, I repeated it slowly, trying to understand. Yes, sir, other things. I stared at her for a long moment, trying to figure out if this was some sort of human joke I wasn't equipped to understand. The other students were staring too, some confused, some amused, some already writing her off as the weird one who wouldn't make it past week 3. Finally, I just waved one claw dismissively. As long as your material can actually be forged into a functional blade, I don't care what you use. Students have used some very unconventional materials over the cycles. One Kelpie even made a sword out of compressed gas. I clicked my mandibles in what passes for a chuckle among my people. It was absolutely useless in combat, but points for creativity. She nodded, still smiling that strange smile. Thank you, sir. I should have known right then, should have recognized the warning signs. But hindsight is always clearer than foresight, as they say. I continued the lecture, talked about heat treatment, edge geometry, balance points, all the foundational knowledge they'd need. But part of my mind kept circling back to that human in the back row. Other things she'd said. What other thing? The next few hours proceeded normally. Well, as normally as anything proceeds at a military academy, where half the students can breathe fire and the other half have toxic blood. I demonstrated basic forging techniques. The students took notes, asked questions, practiced on scrap materials until their technique improved from absolute garbage to merely terrible. Ron participated in everything. She wasn't the strongest student, obviously. Her arms were laughably weak compared to even the smallest Calorith. When she tried to swing the practice hammer, it looked like watching a child attempt to chop wood. But she paid attention. She listened. She watched the demonstrations with an intensity that honestly made me a little uncomfortable. Most students watch with their eyes, take notes, nod along. This human watched like she was memorizing every molecular bond, every angle of the hammer, every spark that flew from heated metal. After class, the students filtered out, chatting, comparing notes, already forming the social hierarchies that would define the next 4 months. The human was one of the last to leave. She stopped at the vault door, stood there for a solid minute, just staring at it. Then she turned and walked away. Didn't even go inside. Strange. By the third day, patterns were emerging. The Vornak student Vixara was her name, had positioned herself as the class prodigy. 6 arms gave her incredible dexterity. She could work 3 tools simultaneously. Shape metal like it was clay. Her techniques were flawless, textbook perfect, and she knew it. "Did you see my edge work today?" she said loudly to a group of admirers. Her voice carried across the entire workshop. Cale Thor said it was the best he'd seen from a first-week student in 10 cycles. I had said that, it was true, but the way she said it, the way she looked toward the back of the room where Rin was quietly organizing her tools, that wasn't pride, that was superiority. Vexra approached Rin's workstation, all 6 arms crossed in a posture that screamed dominance. "So, human." Rin looked up, calm, neutral expression. "Vexara, I've been meaning to ask, your species has been in space for what, 3 cycles?" "About that, yes." 3 cycles. Vexara's laugh was like breaking glass. "My people were building starships when yours were still figuring out the wheel. And you think you belong here at the most prestigious military academy in the galaxy?" The workshop went quiet. Everyone watching now, I should have intervened, probably, but I wanted to see how the human would handle it, Philip. Rin set down her tools. Carefully, precisely, everything aligned. "I think," she said quietly, "that potential isn't measured by how long you've been doing something. It's measured by what you do with the time that you have." "Philosophy," Vexera snorted. "How quaint. Let me know how that works out when we're being graded on actual skill." She walked away. Her admirers followed, laughing. Rin went back to organizing her tools. But I saw her hands. They were shaking. Just slightly. Not from fear. From anger. Good, I thought. Anger is fuel, if you know how to use it. By the end of the first week, something became clear. Rin wasn't using the materials vault. Every other student had been in and out a dozen times, examining samples, running tests, making preliminary choices. The human hadn't entered once. Instead, she was spending time in the biological sciences wing. Now that struck me as odd. The biosciences building was on the complete opposite side of campus from the forge workshops. There was literally no reason for a blade crafting student to be over there. But I started hearing reports. Rin Keller checking out books on xenobiology. Rin Keller requesting access to the anatomy labs. Rin Keller asking very specific questions about skeletal structures across different species. I found her one evening after class. She was cleaning her workstation. Everything in perfect order. Everything aligned, military training. Had to be. "Rin." She looked up. No surprise. Like she'd known I was there the whole time. "Sir, I've been hearing that you spend quite a bit of time in the biosciences wing." "Yes, sir." "Mind if I ask why research, sir?" "Research for what exactly?" She looked up, and there was that smile again. "For my blade, sir." I felt one of my mandibles twitch. "Your blade is a weapons project, not a biology project." "I know, sir, but I like to understand what I'm working with." "The materials vault has complete molecular analyses of every substance in storage. Whatever you choose, you'll understand it perfectly." "I appreciate that, sir." She went back to organizing. "But I'm not using anything from the vault." There it was. Confirmation. I crossed my upper arms over my thorax, lower arms resting on my hips. It's an intimidating posture, or at least it usually is. Rin just kept cleaning. "You're aware," I said slowly, "that the final examination requires a functional blade, not an art project, not a biology experiment, a weapon that can actually be used in combat." "Yes, sir, I'm very aware." "And you're confident that whatever mysterious material you're planning to use will meet those requirements?" "Extremely confident, sir." I wanted to push harder, to demand that she tell me what she was planning, but technically she hadn't broken any rules. I had said students could use whatever materials they wanted, as long as they could forge them into a functional blade, and I pride myself on being a fair instructor. You set the parameters, you stick to them, so I just grunted and walked away, telling myself that whatever the human was planning, it would probably fail during the forging process, and she'd have to start over with something sensible. I was catastrophically wrong about that. Day 15, halfway through the second week. I was reviewing security footage from the lower valleys. Standard procedure. We monitor the area because it's technically restricted. Dangerous wildlife, unstable terrain. Students aren't supposed to go down there without authorization. And there she was, Rin Keller, walking through terrain that had killed 3 Caloreth explorers 2 cycles ago. Alone, carrying rope, climbing gear, and what looked like a portable scanner. I watched her navigate around crevasses that could swallow a transport vehicle. Avoid territorial markers from predators that hunt in packs. moved with a precision that suggested she'd done this before. She stopped at a clearing and knelt next to something large. The camera angle wasn't great, but I enhanced the image. My scales stood straight up. It was a skeleton, massive, easily 10 feet from skull to tail. The bones gleamed white in Athos Prime's triple moonlight. Krothak, apex predator of the lower valleys, 10 feet tall at the shoulder. Razor-sharp claws, bite force that could crush Durasteel. Pack hunters, intelligent, deadly. This one had been dead maybe 6 months. The body was picked clean, bones scattered but mostly intact. Natural death. Had to be. Nothing else on this moon could kill a Krothak except another Krothak. I watched Rin examine the skeleton. She pulled out her scanner, ran it along the bones, taking readings, making notes. Then she did something that made my heart skip. She tested a bone, the femur, long, curved, thick at one end, tapering at the other. She applied pressure, checking density, checking for fractures. Then she pulled out a small saw from her toolkit and started cutting. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. The human was planning to make a blade. From bone. From Krothak bone. I sat there in my office, staring at the screen, all 4 eyes wide. This was either the most brilliant idea I'd ever seen or the most catastrophically stupid. I genuinely couldn't tell which. The next morning, I called her into my office. My office is a small room attached to the main workshop, walls covered in certificates, commendations, photographs of past students holding their finished blades, and one photograph I don't show people. My son, holding the blade he'd forged in this very academy, 30 cycles ago, before the war, before the battle that took him. I keep it face down on my desk. Rin entered, calm as ever, carrying that leather toolkit. Sit. She sat, folded her hands in her lap, waited. Rin, sir, I saw the security footage from last night. Her expression didn't change. The lower valleys are restricted. I had authorization, sir. Applied for it 2 weeks ago. Dr. Zilla from Material Science approved it. Of course she did. Dr. Zilla had a soft spot for unconventional approaches. I leaned forward, claws scraping against the desk surface. You're planning to use Krothak bone? Yes, sir. For your blade? Yes, sir. Ryan, that's bone. Bones are not weapons. With respect, sir, bones have been used as weapons by dozens of species throughout galactic history, including my own species. She pulled something from her toolkit, a small data tablet. In fact, some of the earliest human weapons were made from bone. Club heads, spear points, arrowheads, knives. We got pretty good at it, 200,000 years of refinement, and they worked. She showed me images, archaeological evidence, ancient bone weapons that had survived millennia. These aren't museum pieces, sir. They're proof of concept. Bone can be as effective as metal if you understand its properties and treat it properly. I stared at the images, at weapons older than most civilizations. Yes, on your primitive homeworld, thousands of cycles ago. This is an advanced military academy. We use modern materials. She reached into her toolkit, pulled out something wrapped in dark cloth. You said I could use whatever material I wanted, as long as I could forge it into a functional blade. She unwrapped the cloth, and I felt every scale on my body stand straight up. It was beautiful. The bone had already been cleaned, treated, polished until it gleamed under the office lights like liquid moonlight. The natural curve of the femur was visible, wicked, forward-leaning, screaming danger. It was approximately 2 feet long, thick at one end, tapering to a point at the other. These were your exact words, sir. Her voice was still calm, but there was steel under it now, not metal steel, the metaphorical kind. I have recordings of the lecture if you'd like to verify. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. My mandibles fluttered in agitation. She was right, technically, completely, frustratingly right. Fine. What else could I say? But bone is organic material, it's brittle, it will shatter under combat stress. You're going to fail the practical demonstration even if you manage to shape it into something blade-like. Maybe. She wrapped the bone back up, carefully, like it was precious. Or maybe I know something about bone that you don't. And what exactly would that be? She stood, smiled. That would be telling, sir. Where's the fun in that? She headed for the door, paused at the threshold, looked back at me. 120 days, sir. I'll have a functional blade, I promise. Then she was gone. leaving me sitting in my office, staring at the space where she'd been, wondering what in the name of all the stars I'd gotten myself into. But that wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part came 3 days later. Dr. Zilla contacted me, asked if we could meet. We've known each other 40 cycles, worked together on dozens of projects, published 3 papers on advanced materials synthesis. She's never asked for a private meeting. We met in her lab, surrounded by equipment that could analyze materials down to the subatomic level. K.L. Thor. Her 3 eyes were brighter than usual, excited. I need to show you something. She pulled up a holographic display. Molecular structure. Dense. Complex. Beautiful. What am I looking at? A Krothak bone, specifically a sample that Rin Keller left in my lab 3 days ago. She asked you to analyze it. No, she left it, like she knew I'd be curious. Dr. Zilla zoomed in on the structure. Look at this, the cortical layer, the outer shell. It's incredibly dense. Calcium-based, yes, but the crystalline structure is unlike anything I've seen in organic material. It's compressed, aligned, almost like it was engineered. Evolution is a pretty good engineer. Yes, but look at the trabecular layer, the inner structure. She zoomed in further. It's porous, flexible, but not weak. The matrix is designed to absorb impact, distribute force, prevent catastrophic failure. Bone does that naturally. Not like this. Her eyes were practically glowing now. K.L. Thor, if someone could treat this material properly, enhance the strengths, eliminate the weaknesses, the result would be... She trailed off, searching for words. Extraordinary. I stared at the display, at the molecular dance of organic engineering that had taken millions of cycles to perfect. You think she can do it? I think she's going to try them. Dr. Zilla looked at me, all 3 eyes serious, and I think we should let her. The weeks turned into months. Other students gradually completed their research phases, began the actual forging process. The workshops filled with sound, hammering, the hiss of superheated metal hitting cooling baths, the occasional yelp when someone burned themselves despite protective gear. Vexara forged a beautiful curved blade from titanium alloy. 6 different grips so she could wield it with any combination of her arms. Show off. Dravik went traditional. Folded steel, the same techniques our people have been using for thousands of cycles. Honorable, solid. Even the Kelpie student managed to create something halfway functional out of hardened resin. And Rin still hadn't started forging. She attended every class, took every test, participated in every practical exercise. But her workstation remained empty. No materials laid out, no tools prepared, no plans sketched on data tablets. Nothing. The other students noticed. I heard the whispers when they thought I wasn't listening. What's the human doing? She hasn't even chosen a material yet. Maybe humans don't know how to forge. I heard they're a primitive species. Maybe she doesn't understand the assignment. That last comment came from Vexara, and it made me irrationally angry. Humans were a lot of things, but primitive wasn't one of them. You don't go from discovering fire to achieving faster than light travel in under 10,000 cycles if you're primitive. That's practically a speed run by galactic standards. But I didn't defend Rin. That wasn't my job. My job was to teach blade crafting, and she wasn't crafting anything. Day 60 approached, halfway mark, the day I'd scheduled preliminary evaluations. Nothing formal, just a chance for students to show their progress, get feedback, adjust their approaches if needed. 20 students had volunteered to demonstrate. Vexara was first. Of course she was. She walked to the testing station, 6 arms holding her titanium blade like it was an extension of her body. K.L. Thor, I'd like to perform a preliminary strength test. Proceed. We use standardized targets for testing, synthetic flesh, aluminum alloy, and for advanced students, steel. Vexara chose steel, a column, 6 inches in diameter, high-grade carbon steel. She took her stance. Professional, perfect form, and swung. The blade bit into the steel with a sound like singing. She pulled it through, clean cut, perfect cross-section. The measurement scanner activated automatically, 0.8 inches. Excellent for a preliminary test, better than most students achieve even in their final exams. The class applauded. Vexara bowed, accepting the praise like it was her due. I made notes, gave feedback, moved on to the next student. 17 more demonstrations, varying degrees of success. Then, Instructor K.L. Thor. I looked up. Rin stood at the testing station, holding something wrapped in cloth. The workshop went silent. Cadet Keller, I wasn't aware you were ready for preliminary testing. I wasn't sure myself, sir, until this morning. She unwrapped the cloth, and the workshop exploded in whispers. The bone had been transformed, shaped, carved, polished until it gleamed under the industrial lights like moonlight on water. The natural curve had been enhanced, refined into a wicked forward curve that screamed danger. The thick end was wrapped in some kind of textured material for grip. The narrow end had been sharpened to a point so fine I couldn't see where it ended and air began. The entire length had been etched with patterns, designs, maybe human writing, maybe symbols, maybe just decoration. It was approximately 30 inches long. It looked absolutely lethal, and it was made entirely from bone. Sir, I'd like to perform a preliminary strength test. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the undercurrent, the challenge. What target? Steel, sir, if that's acceptable. Vexra laughed, loud enough for everyone to hear. Steel with bone. This should be entertaining. I should have stopped it, should have said bone couldn't possibly cut steel, should have protected the human from public embarrassment. But something stopped me. Maybe curiosity, maybe fairness, maybe the memory of my son who'd always chosen the unconventional path. Proceed. Rin approached the steel column, the same one Vexra had cut. She studied it for a long moment. Then she did something that made my scales stand up. She ran her thumb along the edge of her bone blade, just dragged it across the sharpened edge. A thin line of red blood appeared on her skin. Is she insane? Someone hissed. But I understood. She was making a point, showing us that her blade was sharp enough to cut her own flesh without any pressure at all, that the edge was not just functional, but perfect. Then she turned to the steel column, adjusted her stance, and swung. The impact rang out like a bell, sharp, clear, beautiful in its violence. Rin stepped back. I activated the measurement scanners. The number flashed on the display, 1.2 inches. The workshop went absolutely silent. 1.2 inches. 4/10 better than Vexara's titanium blade. 4/10 better than the best preliminary result I'd seen in 10 cycles. With a weapon made from bone. I stared at the readouts, at the molecular analysis that was flooding across my screen, at the impossible numbers that said this shouldn't exist. And I realized, the human hadn't just forged a blade, she'd reinvented the very concept of what a blade could be. The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds. Then the workshop exploded. Students crowded around the display screens, pointing at the numbers, arguing, disbelieving. Vexara's titanium blade had cut zero point 0.8 inches. Excellent work. Record-worthy for a preliminary test. Rin's bone blade had cut 1.2, 50% deeper, with a material that shouldn't have been able to cut steel at all. Impossible, Vexara said. Her voice was flat, shocked. That's impossible. Bone is organic, it's weak, it's effective. Rin's voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise like that blade had cut through steel. She wrapped the weapon back in its cloth, carefully, like it was something precious. Thank you for your time, sir. She walked back to her station, set the blade down, started cleaning her workspace with that same methodical precision, like nothing extraordinary had just happened. I stood there, all 4 eyes fixed on the molecular readouts still scrolling across my screen. The bone had been treated. That much was obvious. Chemical baths, heat cycles, pressure treatments. But it wasn't the treatments themselves that made the blade extraordinary. It was how she'd applied them. Bone isn't uniform. It has different densities in different areas. The outer cortical layer is hard and dense. The inner trabecular layer is porous and flexible. Most people trying to make a weapon from bone would treat the whole thing uniformly. Hope for the best. Rin hadn't done that, somehow. Through what must have been weeks of painstaking work, she'd treated each layer differently. She'd hardened the cortical bone to the point where it matched ceramic composites in durability. She'd compressed the trabecular layer, eliminated weak points while maintaining just enough flexibility to prevent catastrophic shattering under impact. And she'd done something to the molecular structure. Some kind of polymer infusion that turned the entire blade into a hybrid material, part organic, part synthetic, entirely deadly. This wasn't just weapon forging. This was materials engineering at a level that would make most doctorate programs weep with envy. Sir, Dr. Zilla's voice came through my comm unit. Private channel. Did you see? I saw. The human, I know, so. A pause. Then Dr. Zilla's laugh, delighted, amazed. She's reinvented metallurgy using biology. Yes, that's exactly what she did. I looked across the workshop, at Rin, still calmly organizing her tools, at Vixara staring at her own titanium blade like it had suddenly become inadequate, at the other students whispering, calculating, realizing that the playing field had just shifted in ways none of them had anticipated. Kale Thor, Dr. Zilla said, the council is going to want to see this. My scales went cold. I know. The Academy Council. 5 administrators who oversaw curriculum, standards, tradition. They valued order, predictability, results that fit within expected parameters. Rin's bone blade fit none of those things. The summons came 2 days later. Formal, official, delivered by messenger drone. Cadet Ryan Keller and instructor Kyle Thor are requested to appear before the Academy Council. Subject unconventional materials usage in advanced blade crafting course. Time 900 hours, day 62. Requested. That was council speak for mandatory. I found Rin in the library, surrounded by books on materials science, molecular engineering, biological structures. They want to see us. She looked up, no surprise on her face. When tomorrow morning? What do they want? I clicked my mandibles, frustrated. To question your methods, to determine if bone qualifies as an acceptable material, to protect their precious tradition. And if they decide it doesn't qualify, then you'll be required to choose something from the vault. Start over, with 60 days already gone. She was quiet for a moment, looking down at her hands. I noticed for the first time how many small cuts covered her fingers. Burns, calluses, the marks of someone who'd been working with dangerous materials for weeks. I won't start over. Her voice was calm, but absolute. Rin, with respect, sir, you said any material that could be forged into a functional blade was acceptable. I've done that. I've exceeded the preliminary test standards. They can't move the goalposts now. They're the council. They can do whatever they want. Then I'll make them see reason. She stood, started gathering her books. My father used to say something. He was a mechanic, combat engineer, fixed things under fire. When people told him the older ways didn't work anymore, he'd say, if it works, it's not obsolete. She looked at me, those dark human eyes steady. This works, sir. The council chamber was designed to intimidate. High ceilings, stone walls, a raised platform where 5 administrators sat in judgment, overhead lighting that made everyone on the floor feel small. Rin and I stood in the center, under that light. The council looked down at us. Chairman Veltok spoke first. His voice echoed off the stone. Cadet Keller, we've reviewed the preliminary test results from instructor Kelthor's class. Yes, sir. Your performance was unexpected. Thank you, sir. That wasn't a compliment. Silence. Veltok leaned forward. His scales caught the light, made him look carved from metal. This academy has standards, traditions. We teach advanced metallurgy, not primitive crafts. With respect, sir, there's nothing primitive about what I've created. You made a weapon from bone. I made a weapon that outperformed titanium alloy in standardized testing. Murmurs from the council. Veltok's eyes narrowed. The spirit of this course is to work with modern materials, to push the boundaries of what's possible with current technology. I did push boundaries, sir, just not the ones you expected. You deliberately circumvented the intent. I followed the stated rules exactly. Rin's voice was respectful, but firm. Instructor Kyle Thor said any material that could be forged into a functional blade was acceptable. He placed no restrictions on the type of material, organic or synthetic, ancient or modern. The only requirement was functionality. She reached into her toolkit, pulled out a data pad. I have the lecture recording. Would the council like to review it? Veltok's mandibles clicked in irritation. That won't be necessary. Then with respect, sir, I've broken no rules. I've met all requirements. And I've produced results that exceed preliminary test standards. One of the other council members spoke up. Administrator Kesserol, materials specialist. The concerned cadet is that your success may be anomalous. One good test result doesn't prove the weapon is combat viable. Then test me again. Rin's response was immediate, confident. Set whatever standards you want. I'll meet them. The council exchanged looks. Veltok leaned back. Very well. If you're so confident in your bone weapon, we'll give you the opportunity to prove it. He pulled up a holographic display. A combat drone appeared, rotating slowly. In 30 days, you will face a standard training drone in combat demonstration. Expert level difficulty, armed with regulation practice blade. 30 days. That wasn't standard. Final exams were still 60 days away. They were accelerating her timeline, putting pressure on her. If you win, Veltok continued, your bone blade will be accepted as a valid project. You may continue to the final examination. And if I lose, you will be required to choose a material from the vault. Start over, and we will implement a new policy restricting organic materials in future courses. The trap was clear. Win and she proved herself. Lose and she destroyed the opportunity for anyone else to try what she tried. The weight of that settled on her shoulders. Visible. Heavy. But Rin didn't flinch. I understand, sir. I accept your terms. Dismissed. We left the chamber, walked in silence down the corridor. Only when we were outside did Rin stop, lean against the wall. Her hands were shaking. 30 days. Her voice was barely a whisper. I've never done combat training. Not real combat. I can forge. I can engineer. But fighting, she looked at me. Sir, I don't know if I can do this. It was the first time I'd seen fear in her eyes. Real fear. Not of failure, but of letting down everyone who might come after her. I thought about my son, about the last conversation we'd had before he left for war. He'd been scared too, and I'd told him the truth. Fear means you understand the stakes. That's good. That's what keeps you sharp. I put one claw on her shoulder. You have 30 days, and you won't face this alone. But wait, it gets worse. Because that same afternoon that I discovered something that made the Council's challenge look almost manageable. I was reviewing combat training schedules, trying to figure out how to cram 60 days of fighting instruction into 30, when I noticed something odd. The expert-level training drones, the ones the Council had specified for Rin's test. They'd been updated. New programming, new difficulty algorithms. 3 days ago, right after Rin's preliminary test, I pulled up the specs. My heart sank. The new programming was 40% more aggressive than the old version. Faster reaction times, more complex attack patterns, designed to challenge experienced warriors. Not a student who'd never held a blade in combat. The Council had rigged the test. They wanted her to fail. I sat there, staring at the data, feeling anger burn through my chest like plasma fire. This wasn't about standards or tradition. This was about fear. Fear that a human, with a primitive material and unconventional methods, was proving that their precious modern technology wasn't the only path to excellence. I pulled up my comm unit, called someone I hadn't spoken to in cycles. Dravik, I need a favor. Dravik met me in one of the private training rooms. He was Calareth, like me, traditional, honorable, and one of the best blade fighters I'd ever taught. Instructor, his voice was respectful but curious. You said it was urgent. It is. I need you to train someone. Hukayan, the human, Rin Keller, his mandibles spread, the Calareth equivalent of a smile. I was hoping you'd ask. Everyone's talking about her bone blade, about the preliminary test, about the Council trying to shut her down. He set down his own weapon. Folded steel, beautiful craftsmanship. My people used bone weapons 10,000 cycles ago, before we discovered metallurgy, before we reached the stars. It's not primitive, instructor. It's primal. It's where all weapon making began. He looked at me, all four eyes serious. Will you help her? Yes, but I need to know. Can she actually fight? I don't know. That's what we need to find out. The first training session was brutal. Rin showed up on time, wearing practical clothes, hair tied back, ready. Dravik handed her a practice blade, weighted polymer, designed to simulate real combat without causing serious injury. Show me your stance. She took what she probably thought was a fighting position. Dravik circled her, professional, analytical. Too wide. You're off balance. Someone hits you from the side, you'll fall. He adjusted her feet. Narrow, weight forward, blade up. Like this? Better, now swing at me. She swung. Dravik sidestepped. Casual, like avoiding falling rain. Again. She swung. He dodged. Again. Swing, dodge. This continued for 20 minutes. By the end, Rin was breathing hard, frustrated, her swings getting wilder. Stop, Dravik's voice was sharp. You're fighting angry. Angry means sloppy. Sloppy means dead. I can't hit you. Of course not. I've been training for 15 cycles. You've been training for 20 minutes. He handed her a water container. Sit, rest. We need to talk about what you're actually trying to accomplish, Audra. They sat, Rin gulping water. Dravik calm, patient. You're thinking like a human. I am human. Yes, and that's your advantage. But you're trying to fight like a Vornax or a Calorith. Big swings, power strikes. That's not going to work. Why not? Because you're not built for it. Look at you. He gestured at her frame, small, light, compared to most species. You weigh maybe 100 pounds. The drone you're going to fight 300. You try to match power with power, you'll lose. Then what do I do? Dravik smiled. You do what your species has always done. You adapt. You improvise. You use what you have. He stood, demonstrated. Speed, precision, your blade is curved, forward weighted. It's designed for slashing, not chopping. He moved through a series of strikes. Fluid, graceful, nothing like the heavy power strikes Rin had been attempting. You don't try to overpower the drone. You cut it, fast. Multiple strikes, use that curve. Let the blade do the work. Understanding dawned in Rin's eyes, like a scalpel, not a hammer. Exactly. The training continued every day, 4 hours, sometimes more. Dravik was patient, methodical, breaking down every movement into components Rin could learn. Footwork, balance, timing, how to read an opponent's weight shift, how to anticipate attacks, how to create openings. Slowly, day by day. Rhine improved, her stance became stable, her strikes more controlled. She started seeing patterns in Dravik's movements, started countering, started landing hits. By day 73, she could hold her own for almost a minute before Dravik would disarm her. Progress, but not enough. The combat demonstration was in 19 days, and then something happened that changed everything. Day 75, training session, evening. Rin was working through strike combinations, Dravik observing, calling corrections. She came in for a diagonal slash, committed too hard, lost balance. Dravik swept her legs, standard defensive move. Rin fell, tried to catch herself. Her bone blade hit the training post. Hard. The sound was wrong. Not the usual ring of practice weapons striking wood. This was sharper, higher, like breaking glass. Everyone froze. Rin got up, looked at her blade, and went pale. There was a crack, visible, running from the base of the blade up through the center, maybe 8 inches long. Not catastrophic. The weapon wasn't broken, but it was damaged, compromised. Rin just stood there, staring at it. Then she did something I didn't expect. She laughed. Not the good kind of laugh, the kind that comes when you're so far past stressed that your brain doesn't know what else to do. 17 days. Her voice was hollow. I have 17 days until the combat demonstration, and my blade just cracked. She looked at Dravik, at me. I don't have time to start over. I used most of my bone stock on the first blade. What I have left is smaller pieces, inferior quality. The laugh died. I'm finished. She sat down, right there on the training room floor. Set the cracked blade across her knees. Dravik looked at me, concerned. I didn't know what to say. Because she was right, there wasn't enough time to forge a new blade from scratch. Not one that would meet the standards she'd already set. The preliminary test had raised expectations, raised stakes. A lesser blade wouldn't just fail the combat test, it would prove the council right. Rin sat there for maybe 10 minutes. We let her. Sometimes people need time to process disaster. Then she stood up. I need to see Dr. Zilla. Dr. Zilla's lab at night looked like something from a dream. Equipment humming, holographic displays casting blue light across metal surfaces. The smell of ozone and possibility. Rin walked in holding the cracked blade. Dr. Zilla looked up, saw the damage. Oh no. Yeah. Rin set the blade on the analysis table. Can you look at it? Tell me if there's any way to repair it. Dr. Zilla activated the molecular scanners. Light played across the bone, penetrating, revealing. The crack showed up on the holographic display, a fault line running through the material structure. It follows the grain structure. Dr. Zilla zoomed in. See here, the fracture propagated along the natural boundaries between the cortical and trabecular layers. So it's unfixable. I didn't say that. Dr. Zilla tilted her head. All 3 eyes focused on different parts of the display. Look at how clean the crack is. No splintering, no fragmentation. It broke along its natural weakness. But that weakness is also structured. I don't understand. Bone evolved to handle impacts, to flex without breaking. When it does crack, it does so in specific ways, controlled ways. She zoomed in further. This crack, it's not random. It's following the internal architecture of the bone, almost like the material knew exactly where to fail to minimize overall damage. Rin leaned closer, studying the display. You're saying the crack is designed? No, I'm saying the crack is natural, but natural doesn't mean bad. Dr. Zilla pulled up another display, showed comparative images. Do you know about Damascus steel ancient earth metalworking technique? Folding metal layers, creating patterns. Yes, but not just for aesthetics. The folds create micro serrations, weak points that actually make the blade stronger, better at cutting, self-sharpening. Understanding started to dawn in Rin's eyes. You're saying this crack could be a feature. I'm saying, what if you stopped trying to fix it and started trying to enhance it? Silence. Then Rin picked up the blade, held it to the light, looking at the crack not as damage, but as possibility. Controlled fractures. Her voice was quiet, thinking, if I could create a network of microfractures, intentional, designed, each one following the grain structure, the blade would be more flexible, absorb more impact, and every fracture line would create a new cutting edge. Dr. Zilla was smiling now. It would be like having a blade that sharpens itself during combat. Can it be done, Tom? I don't know. No one's ever tried. Rin was quiet for a long moment. Then she set the blade down, pulled out her toolkit. I need your lab, your equipment, and I need you to not ask questions about what I'm doing for the next 72 hours. Rin, the combat demonstration is in 17 days. If this doesn't work, if I don't try, I've already lost. She looked at Dr. Zilla. My father taught me something. When I was learning to work with my hands, to fix broken machines, broken things. What did he teach you? He taught me that sometimes the break is where the strength comes from. That wounded metal properly treated is stronger than metal that's never been tested. She opened her toolkit. Inside were tools, precision instruments, some clearly human in origin, and something else. A coin, military, worn smooth from handling. He carried this through 2 wars, through missions that should have killed him, and when he came home, he gave it to me. She touched the coin. He said humans don't win by being perfect. We win by being adaptable, by taking damage and turning it into advantage. Rin picked up the cracked blade. This crack isn't damage, it's information. The blade is telling me where it wants to break, where it wants to flex, where it wants to cut. And you're going to listen. Yes, and then I'm going to help it do those things better. I didn't see Rin for 3 days. She stayed in Dr. Zilla's lab, working. Dravik kept asking when she'd return to combat training. I had no answer. On day 78, I got a message. KL Thor, you need to see this. Dr. Zilla. I went to the lab, found Ryan sitting at a workbench, looking exhausted, hair disheveled, dark circles under her eyes, but smiling on the table in front of her. The bone blade changed. The single crack was gone. In its place, a network of hairline fractures, deliberately created, following the natural grain of the bone like rivers following landscape. The patterns were beautiful, geometric, organic, like frost on glass. Pick it up, Dr. Zilla gestured. I picked up the blade. It felt different, lighter somehow, more alive. The fracture lines caught the light, made the entire surface shimmer. I don't understand. Shouldn't cracks make it weaker? Try to bend it. I applied pressure, carefully. The blade flexed, easily, more than any metal blade could flex, and then it snapped back. Perfect. No permanent deformation. It's like living wood. Better than wood, and Rin stood up, took the blade back. Each fracture line is a controlled weakness, a place where the material can flex under stress instead of shattering catastrophically. She ran her finger along one of the lines. But here's the thing. Each fracture is also an edge. She held the blade up to the light. You see how the cracks create these micro serrations, too small to see without magnification. But when the blade cuts, these tiny edges catch, pull, create friction, making it sharper, making it self-sharpening. Every impact, every strike. The fracture lines catch and tear on a microscopic level. Dr. Zilla pulled up molecular scans. And during combat, when the blade flexes, these fractures open slightly, then close. The movement actually clears debris, keeps the edges clean. It's alive. The words came out before I could stop them. Rin smiled. Not alive, but responsive. Adaptive. Like bone is supposed to be. She wrapped the blade carefully. I have 14 days until the combat demonstration. Dravik's been patient. I need to get back to training. Rin, she looked at me. What you've done here. This isn't just weapon making. This is innovation. It's necessity, sir. The council wants me to fail. I'm just refusing to cooperate. The next 14 days were a blur. Rin trained like someone possessed. 4 hours with Dravik, learning combat. 4 hours in the forge, fine-tuning the blade, making microscopic adjustments. 4 hours studying fight recordings, analyzing drone patterns, finding weaknesses. The rest of the time she slept. Barely. I watched her transform. The tentative student from day one was gone. In her place, someone focused, driven, dangerous. On day 91, Dravik pulled me aside after training. She's ready. You're sure? No, but she's as ready as she can be in the time we had. He paused. The drone is going to be faster. Stronger. More experienced. I know. If she tries to match it, move for move, she'll lose. Then what does she need to do? Dravik smiled. She needs to do what humans do, improvise, adapt, win by being unpredictable. You think she can? I think she's going to surprise everyone. He looked toward the training room where Rin was cooling down, stretching, preparing, including herself. Day 92, combat demonstration day. The arena was filling up, not just students and instructors this time. Word had spread about the human, about the bone blade, about the council trying to shut down her project. Military observers, civilian visitors, representatives from other academies. Everyone wanted to see if the impossible could happen twice. I stood in the instructor box, looking down at the arena floor. The combat drone waited in standby mode, silent, menacing. A humanoid shape of metal and programming designed to test warriors. Expert level. The setting that challenges experienced fighters. And Ryan was walking out to face it, alone, carrying a weapon made from bone that she'd designed, forged, broken, and rebuilt in 92 days. The crowd went silent as she entered. She looked small down there, fragile, human, but she walked with confidence. Head up, shoulders back. She held her bone blade loosely in one hand. The fracture patterns caught the arena lights, made the weapon shimmer like something from another world. Rin stopped in the center of the arena, looked up at me in the instructor box, and nodded. Ready. I activated my communicator. Cadet Keller, you have requested combat demonstration to prove weapon viability. Do you wish to proceed? Yes, sir. Her voice was steady. Understood. You will face a standard training drone, expert level difficulty, armed with regulation practice blade. You must demonstrate that your weapon can be effectively used in actual combat conditions. I understand, sir. The demonstration will continue until the drone registers defeat, or until you are unable to continue. There is no time limit, no restrictions on tactics. I paused. Do you have any questions? No, sir. Then prepare yourself. I signaled the technician. The combat drone hummed to life. Its optical sensors glowed blue, scanning Ren, calculating her threat level, running thousands of combat scenarios. It drew its practice blade, polymer, dense, weighted to simulate real weapons, and took a fighting stance. Professional, perfect, textbook. Rin rolled her shoulders, adjusted her grip on the bone blade, and waited. The drone moved first. It always does. But what happened next? What happened next changed everything. The drone struck, fast, professional, an overhead swing designed to test defensive reflexes. Most students would have blocked, met force with force. Ryan didn't. She sidestepped. Minimal movement, just enough to let the polymer blade whistle past her shoulder. The drone adjusted. Immediately. Swung again, low this time, aiming for her legs. Rin jumped, small hop, efficient, landed, blade still ready, still waiting. The crowd murmured. She wasn't attacking, just dodging, moving, letting the drone commit to strikes that hit nothing but air. What's she doing? Someone whispered behind me. Observing. Dravik's voice. He'd moved to the instructor box, watching. She's reading its patterns, learning its timing. The drone came in harder, faster. 3-strike combination. High, low, mid. Rin flowed around them like water, not wasting energy, not trying to match the drone's speed, just staying ahead of it. Then she struck. Quick slash, diagonal, across the drone's torso. The bone blades sang through the air, connected. The impact sensor registered. Red light flashed on the drone's chest. First blood, so to speak. The drone's programming shifted. I could see it in the way it moved. More aggressive now, more focused. It came at Rin with a flurry of strikes, combinations designed to overwhelm, to force mistakes. She blocked some, dodged others, and between the drone's attacks she cut. Small strikes, fast, using the blade's natural curve, slashing instead of stabbing. Scalpel, not hammer, just like Dravik had taught her. Red lights appeared across the drone's body, shoulders, arms, legs, accumulating damage. But the drone was landing hits too. The polymer blade caught Rin's shoulder, her thigh, her ribs. Impact sensors in her training gear flashed yellow. Warning strikes, not enough to register defeat, but enough to hurt. She was slowing down. The drone was tireless, mechanical, consistent. Rin was human, breathing hard now, sweating, tiring. She can't keep this up, Vexera said from somewhere in the crowd. The drone will outlast her. She was right. Endurance was the drone's advantage. It could fight for hours without fatigue. Rin had maybe 5 more minutes before exhaustion made her sloppy. The drone seemed to sense this, pressed harder, faster combinations, less recovery time between strikes, forcing Rin to react, to defend, to give ground. She was being pushed back across the arena floor, step by step, losing position. The crowd was silent now, watching, waiting for the inevitable, for the moment when fatigue would slow her reflexes just enough, when the drone would land the critical hit that would end the demonstration. That would prove the council right. That bone couldn't compete with modern materials. That tradition was just a word for obsolete. Then Rin did something unexpected. She stopped retreating, planted her feet, set her stance, and when the drone came in for another combination, she didn't dodge. She blocked. Hard. Bone blade meeting polymer blade. The impact rang out like a bell, and then the sound changed. That sharp crystalline crack. Everyone heard it. The drone froze. Mid-strike. Programming recognizing something outside normal parameters. Rin stepped back, looked at her blade. The fracture lines, the ones she'd deliberately created, they'd opened, visible now, spreading across the bone surface like lightning frozen in time. The crowd gasped. The blade looked broken, shattered. "She's done," someone said. But Rin was smiling. That same smile she'd given me on the first day of class. The one that said she knew something no one else did. She lifted the blade, held it to the light. The fracture lines gleamed, each one a hairline gap in the material. And when she moved the blade, those gaps flexed, opened, closed, like the weapon was breathing. "No," I heard myself say. Dravik looked at me. "What?" "She's not done. She's just getting started." The drone activated again. Attack protocol resumed. It came at Rin with the same aggressive combinations. But now she was different. The bone blade moved through the air with a sound I'd never heard from a weapon before. A whisper, a hiss, like wind through broken glass. And when it connected with the drone's practice blade, the fracture lines caught, grabbed, pulled. The polymer blade skidded off at an unexpected angle, throwing the drone's timing off. Rhine flowed inside its guard. Cut. The bone blade slashed across the drone's chest. Deep hit. Critical damage registered. The drone adapted, tried a different approach. Grappling move, using its superior weight. Rhine let it close, then twisted, used the drone's momentum against it. The bone blade flexed, actually bent under the stress of the movement. Any metal blade would have snapped. The bone curved, absorbed the force, sprang back, and in that spring back, the blade cut, almost on its own. Across the drone's neck joint, sensors registered critical damage, system vulnerability. The drone tried to disengage, create distance, reassess. Rin didn't let it. She pressed the attack now, moving forward, using combinations Dravik had taught her, but adding something else, something human, improvisation. She used the arena, used the walls, used the drone's own programming against it. When it tried to corner her, she used the corner for leverage, kicked off the wall, came at it from an unexpected angle. When it tried to use its strength advantage, she went low, cut at joints, at weak points, not trying to overpower it, trying to dismantle it. And that blade, that impossible bone blade with its network of intentional cracks, it was doing things no weapon should be able to do, flexing when it should break, cutting when it should dull, sharpening itself on the polymer blade it was fighting. Every impact, every clash. The microfractures caught and tore on a level too small to see, but the effect was visible. The drone's practice blade was wearing down, showing damage, deformation, while the bone blade looked sharper, more alive. The crowd was on their feet now, cheering, shouting, species from 12 star systems forgetting their differences, united in watching something impossible. A human, with a weapon made from bone, fighting a machine designed to challenge experienced warriors, and winning. The drone made one last attempt. Desperate programming, all-out assault, maximum aggression. No defense, just offense. It came at Rin with everything it had, and she met it. Not with force, but with precision. She sidestepped the first strike, parried the second, ducked under the third, and then, when the drone overextended, committed too hard to an attack. She struck. One clean slash, diagonal, from shoulder to hip. The bone blade cut through the drone's torso sensor array. Critical damage, system failure. The drone froze, motors whining, trying to continue. Then slowly, mechanically, it lowered its blade and knelt. The universal sign of defeat. The arena exploded, sound like a physical force, cheering, shouting, species making noises of approval in languages I didn't recognize. Rin stood there, breathing hard, sweating, exhausted, but victorious. She looked up at the instructor box, at me, and I realized I was standing, all four hands gripping the railing. My mandibles spread so wide it hurt. Pride, pure pride. Not just in her skill, but in her courage, her innovation, her refusal to accept limitations. I activated my communicator. Combat demonstration complete. Cadet Keller has successfully proven weapon viability in live combat conditions. My voice echoed across the arena. However, the crowd quieted, curious. The examination is not complete. Per Academy standards, we must also conduct cutting tests to ensure the weapon maintains effectiveness across multiple challenge types. This was it, the final hurdle, the test that would either cement her success or reveal unexpected weakness. Cadet Keller, prepare for standard cutting examination. The technicians rolled out the testing equipment. 3 targets, standard protocol, synthetic flesh dummy, aluminum column, Durasteel plate. The same tests every student faced. The same tests Vexera had dominated in her final examination earlier that day. Vexera, who'd cut 1.6 inches into Durasteel with her perfect titanium blade, setting a new personal record, earning standing ovation. Ryan approached the first target, the synthetic flesh dummy. She was tired, visibly. The combat demonstration had taken everything she had, but she steadied herself, adjusted her grip on the bone blade. The fracture lines still visible, still gleaming. She drew back, calculated the angle, and struck. The bone blade went through the synthetic flesh like it wasn't there. One clean diagonal slash, shoulder to hip. The dummy split apart, collapsed in 2 perfect pieces. The crowd murmured approval, but that was expected. Synthetic flesh was the easy test. Proceed to target 2, the aluminum column, 6 inches in diameter, soft metal by industrial standards, but still metal, still harder than bone should be able to cut. Rin studied the column, the way she'd studied everything, with that intensity that made you feel like she was seeing something no one else could. Then she shifted her grip, adjusted her stance, and swung. The impact rang out clear and sharp. The bone blade bit into the aluminum, sang through it. The column separated. Clean cross-section, no jagged edges, no deformation, perfect cut. And when Ren pulled the blade back, I could see the edge clearly. Still sharp, still intact. No chips, no rolls, no damage at all. The blade had cut through metal without any visible wear. Impossible. The crowd knew it too. The murmurs got louder, more excited. Proceed to target 3. The Durasteel plate, 2 inches thick, suspended between 2 posts. The material we use for starship hulls. Incredibly strong, incredibly resistant to cutting. This was the test that separated good students from exceptional ones. Anything over a 1/4 inch was considered excellent. Vexara had cut 1.6 inches, a new record for the semester, maybe for the cycle. The crowd was silent now. This was the moment. the make-or-break test that would define Rin's entire project. She approached the plate, stood in front of it, and did something that made the entire arena hold its breath. She repeated the gesture from the preliminary test, thumb along the edge, drawing blood, making a point, showing us all that even after combat, even after 2 cutting tests, the blade was still sharp enough to cut her own flesh without pressure. Then she turned to the Durasteel plate, positioned herself, set her stance, gripped the blade with both hands. And I saw it. That same look she'd had when she first walked into my workshop 92 days ago. Determination, focus, absolute confidence. She swung, full power, full commitment, every ounce of strength in her small human body. The impact was like thunder. The sound echoed off the arena walls, and sharp and clear and absolutely beautiful in its violence. Rin stepped back. The crowd was frozen, waiting. I activated the measurement scanners. Numbers flashed on the display screens around the arena. 1.9 inches. The arena went absolutely silent, then exploded. Sound like a physical force. Louder than before. Louder than anything I'd heard in 47 cycles of teaching. 1.9 inches. 0.3 of an inch deeper than Vexara's titanium blade. Deeper than any blade I'd seen in my entire career. Deeper than records that had stood for 47 cycles. With a weapon made from bone, I stood there. All 4 eyes locked on the numbers, on the molecular scans flooding across my display. The bone blade, after combat, after multiple impacts, after 3 cutting tests, still showed no significant edge wear, still maintained structural integrity, still performed like it had been designed by evolution itself, which in a way it had. Instructor Thor, Rin's voice, calm despite her exhaustion. Have I passed the examination? I looked down at her. This small human who'd walked into my workshop 3 months ago, who'd asked about materials outside the vault, who'd chosen bone when she could have chosen anything, who'd proven that sometimes the oldest solutions are still the best. Cadet Keller, my voice boomed across the arena. Official, formal. You have not only passed this examination. I paused. Let the moment build. You have exceeded every standard we set, every expectation we held, every limitation we thought existed. The crowd erupted again, but I wasn't done. In 47 cycles of teaching, 3,000 students, 127 species, I have never witnessed a demonstration of this caliber. I felt my mandibles spread, wide, genuine. Your blade will be entered into the Academy archives. Your methods will be studied, and your results will be remembered. I looked across the arena at the council members sitting in their reserve section, at Chairman Veltok, who was staring at the display screens, at the numbers that proved him wrong. Highest honors, permanent record. Congratulations, Cadet Keller. The crowd poured onto the arena floor, students, instructors, visitors, everyone wanting to see the bone blade up close, to meet the human who'd done the impossible. Rin stood in the center of it all, overwhelmed, but handling it with grace, answering questions, accepting congratulations, explaining her methods. I watched from the instructor box, feeling something I hadn't felt in cycles. Hope, not just for Rin, but for what she represented. The idea that innovation doesn't always come from the newest technology. Sometimes it comes from looking at old problems with new eyes, from respecting what came before, while refusing to be limited by it. Quite a student you have there. Dr. Zilla appeared beside me, all 3 eyes bright with excitement. She's going to change things. You know that. I know. The council won't be happy. The council can adapt, or become irrelevant. Dr. Zilla laughed. You've changed, Thor. You used to be all about tradition, following the rules. I still am about tradition, but Ryan taught me something. What's that? That tradition isn't about repeating the past. It's about honoring the wisdom that survived. And wisdom says, use what works. Down on the arena floor, I saw Vexara approach Rin. The Vornax had been silent since her own record had been broken, sitting in the stands, watching, processing. Now she stood in front of Rin, all 6 arms crossed. The crowd quieted, sensing potential conflict. Human, Vexara's voice was loud enough to carry. I need to see your blade. Rin hesitated, then unwrapped the bone weapon, held it out. Vexara took it, carefully, all 6 hands supporting it. She examined the fracture lines. See, The micro serrations, the curve, the balance. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she handed it back. I was wrong about you. Her voice was quieter now, but no less sincere. I thought humans were primitive, weak, unworthy of being here. She gestured at the bone blade. But this is genius. This is craftsmanship at a level I didn't think existed outside my own species. Vexra's mandibles clicked, the Vornak's equivalent of respect. How did you know about the microfractures? About using the material's natural weakness as strength? Rin smiled, tired but genuine. I didn't know, not at first. The blade cracked during training. I thought I was finished. But you weren't. No, because I remembered something my father taught me. He was a mechanic, fixed broken machines, broken equipment. She held up the blade, let the light catch the fracture lines. He said wounded metal, properly treated, is stronger than metal that's never been tested. That the cracks are where you learn what the material is really capable of. So you enhance the cracks instead of fixing them. I listened to what the material wanted to do and helped it do that better. Vexra was quiet for a moment. Then she did something that shocked everyone. She bowed. All 6 arms spread, the Vornak's gesture of deepest respect. You've taught me something today, human, and I am grateful. The celebration continued for hours. But eventually, the crowd dispersed, students filtered out, visitors left. The arena emptied. I found Rin sitting alone in the prep area, blade across her knees, staring at nothing. You should be celebrating. She looked up, smiled weakly. I think, it's just a lot. You earned it. Did I though? She touched the blade, ran her fingers along the fracture lines. I didn't invent anything new. Humans have been using bone weapons for 200,000 years. I just applied modern techniques to ancient materials. That's exactly what makes it brilliant. I sat down beside her, as much as a Calareth can sit. You know what the council was afraid of? That I'd fail? No, that you'd succeed, that you'd prove their entire worldview was incomplete. I gestured around the empty arena. They've built this academy on the assumption that newer is better, that technology is the only path to excellence, that the old ways are obsolete. But they're not. No, they're not. They're tested, proven, refined by generations of use. I looked at her, all 4 eyes serious. You reminded us of something we'd forgotten. That innovation isn't about abandoning what came before. It's about understanding it, respecting it, and building on it. Rin was quiet for a long moment. My father would have liked this place, this academy. He was military, Marine Corps, combat engineer. He believed in doing things right. No shortcuts, no excuses. She pulled out that coin from her toolkit, the one I'd seen before. He gave me this before his last deployment, said it was for luck. Did it work? For me, yes. For him, she didn't finish, didn't need to. He would be proud of you. Her eyes got bright, wet. You think, I know, I felt my voice crack. Because watching you these past 92 days, the dedication, the courage, the refusal to quit even when everything said you should, that's what every father hopes for. Rin looked at me, understanding in her eyes. We sat in silence for a while. Then she stood, wrapped her blade carefully. Thank you for believing in me, even when you didn't want to. I never stopped believing in you. I just stopped believing things could change. And now I stood, spread my mandibles, real smile. Now I think humans are going to make sure the rest of us keep up. The news spread fast. By the next day, the story was on every academy feed across 12 star systems. Human student breaks 47 cycle record, using bone. The military reached out within hours, wanted to study Rin's methods, see if bone treatment could be viable for special operations, low-resource missions. Engineering firms contacted Dr. Zilla before the sun set, wanted to license the polymer infusion technique. Other academies requested curriculum updates that same week. The Academy Council held an emergency meeting. I was summoned, along with Dr. Zilla and Rin. We stood in that same intimidating chamber, under that same harsh light, but this time was different. Chairman Veltok looked tired, older somehow. Cadet Keller, Instructor Kaelthor, Dr. Zilla, his voice lacked its usual authority. The council has deliberated regarding the recent developments in the advanced blade crafting course. He pulled up a holographic display, official documentation. Effective immediately, the academy curriculum will be updated to include instruction on organic materials, biological engineering, and unconventional approaches to weapon design. Silence. Rin looked at me, shocked. I was shocked too. Veltalk continued. Furthermore, the materials vault will be supplemented with biological samples, properly preserved, from species across the galaxy. He looked directly at Rin. You were right, and we were wrong. Tradition is not the same as limitation, and innovation can come from any source. He actually bowed, slight but genuine. The council apologizes for our resistance to new ideas. Rin stepped forward. Sir, with respect, I wasn't trying to prove anyone wrong. I was just trying to prove something right. And what was that? That the old ways still have value, that what our ancestors learned through generations of experience, that knowledge is still relevant. She smiled. You don't have to choose between tradition and innovation. You can honor both. 1 year later, I stood in my workshop, first day of a new semester. 63 students filed in, eager, nervous, excited, more diverse than ever before. Word about the curriculum changes had spread, attracted different kinds of applicants, students interested in biology, in unconventional approaches, in proving their own species' traditional methods still had value. I spotted 5 humans in the group, more than ever before, and standing at the front, not as a student, but as a teaching assistant, Rin Keller. She graduated with highest honors, been offered positions at military research facilities, engineering firms, other academies. She'd turned them all down, asked if she could stay, help teach, share what she'd learned. How could I say no, and started my speech, the one I'd given for 47 cycles. Welcome to Advanced Blade Crafting. You're here because someone somewhere decided you have potential. The usual opening, but then I added something new. In this course, you will learn ancient arts and modern techniques. You will explore materials from our vault, which now contains samples from 800 worlds, including biological materials. I paused. Let that sink in. Last year, a student made a blade from bone. It was one of the finest weapons I've ever seen. It broke records, changed minds, and proved that the old ways still matter. I looked at Rin. She smiled. So don't limit yourselves to obvious choices. Look around. Think creatively. Find something that speaks to who you are, where you come from. I slammed my claw on the podium. Then make it deadly. After class, students swarmed around Rin, asking questions, wanting to see the bone blade, asking about her methods. She handled it with patience, grace, sharing what she'd learned without arrogance, teaching. One student hung back. Young Calorith, traditional family, conservative values. She approached Rin hesitantly. Excuse me, Instructor Keller. Rin smiled. Just Rin is fine. I'm still learning too. I wanted to ask about your blade, the bone one. What about it? My grandmother, she's a craftswoman, makes traditional Calorith tools, using methods that are thousands of cycles old. The student pulled out a small wrapped bundle. She sent this with me, said if I found the right teacher, someone who understood old ways, I should ask them about it. She unwrapped the bundle. Inside was a piece of chitin, harvested from some kind of insect. Huge. The piece was easily a foot long, curved, naturally sharp at one edge. Rin took it, examined it carefully. This is beautiful. Where did she get it? Our homeworld. There are creatures, giant beetles. Their shells are incredibly strong. My people used them for armor, for weapons, before we discovered metal. And you want to make a blade from this? Is that stupid? Rin smiled. No, it's brilliant. Chitin is an amazing material, lightweight, strong, and if the preliminary data I've seen is right, it might even be self-repairing under certain conditions. She handed it back. Let's run some tests, figure out its properties, but I think this could be something special. The students' eyes lit up. Really, Tutpum? Really, let's go to the lab. I watched them leave together, the human and the Calorith, planning, discussing, excited about possibilities. Dr. Zilla appeared beside me. She's a natural teacher. She is. And students are already calling her methods the Keller method. I heard. The military signed their first contract yesterday, 50 million credits for research and development, and 3 other academies have hired former students to teach organic materials courses. I clicked my mandibles, amused. 1 year ago, the council wanted to ban her project. Now they're building an entire department around it. Times change. Yes, they do. We stood there, watching students work, the workshop filling with the sounds of creation, hammering, grinding. the hiss of cooling metal, and now new sounds, chemical baths, biological processing, the soft whir of molecular scanners, old and new, working together. The Academy held its annual exhibition 6 months after that. Rin's bone blade was mounted in a place of honor in the Hall of Legends. Alongside weapons from 300 cycles of history, thousands of visitors came to see it. The plaque beneath it read, "The Keller Blade, forged from Krothak bone by Cadet Rin Keller, first human to graduate advanced blade crafting with highest honors. Her methods revolutionized material science across 847 military academies, proof that wisdom is timeless, and innovation knows no species." I stood there one evening after the crowds had gone, looking at that blade, still gleaming, still beautiful, still impossible. And I thought about my son, about the blade he'd forged with traditional methods, about how proud I'd been, but also about the questions I'd never encouraged him to ask, the experiments I'd never let him try. What might he have created if I'd been a different kind of teacher? I'd never know, but I could make sure future students had those chances, the chances Rin had fought for, and won. Behind me, I heard voices, students, discussing their projects. "I'm using coral from my homeworld. I'm working with crystallized sap. My instructor suggested spider silk." They passed by, excited, confident, unafraid to experiment, because Rin had shown them it was possible, had proven that the galaxy's wisdom wasn't locked in vaults or databases. It was everywhere, in nature, in tradition, in the old ways that had sustained civilizations for millennia, waiting for someone brave enough to remember. I touched the glass case, gently. "Thank you." I whispered it. Then I turned, walked through familiar corridors, past workshops where the next generation created, learned, grew. The Academy would continue, long after I was gone, and somewhere, on some world I'd never see. A student would pick up a piece of bone or wood or stone and wonder, what if? And that question, that simple what if, would change everything, again, because that's what humans do. They sharpen bones and challenge the galaxy to keep up.